Hey friends, I'm Gio, and welcome back. I appreciate you dropping by. Bentley's with me. He's sitting on my lap, sleeping right now, but you might hear a few things later on when he wakes up. Let's get started with this week's story. We're going back to Mercy, Alabama. A lot of you requested a sequel. Here it is. Chapter 1. The attendant nearly fainted when I signed the release papers for the 1964.5 Shelby Mustang. I owned it, technically, but the museum had been storing it for me. When he asked where I was taking it, and I said, Mercy, Alabama, he nearly fainted again. Mercy is just shy of 2,000 miles from Vegas, a 30-hour drive, 3 days if I behaved. Somehow, it felt right to go home in that car, my granduncle's car, the one he left me in his will. I needed the road, I needed the time, and I needed to figure out what Grady meant to me. I texted him that I was on my way. It actually took me 3.5 days. Roadwork in Tennessee forced a detour. About a mile from the turnoff is the old sign, Welcome to Mercy, Alabama. Population 7,800. Christmas tree capital of the Bible Belt. By the time I rolled into Mercy, the sun was down and the Christmas tree capital of the Bible Belt was in full holiday swing. Mid-November meant loggers were already hauling this year's crop of red cedars. I'm Marcus Carter, born in Mercy, but long gone. Home is Las Vegas now. Mercy ran me out for being gay. I was here for one reason, to see if the spark between me and Grady was real. A truck stacked with fresh cut cedars rumbled past me as I pulled into town. I thumbed out a text. I'm here. Where are you? Grady replied a minute later. Greasy spoon, throwing down a couple ribeyes and some hush puppies. How do you want yours? Medium rare. Give me 5 minutes. Chapter 2. Mercy was decorated for Christmas. Red and white candy cane lights hung from the street lamps on Main Street. Every store window had blinking lights. The old town store blared the songs Rudolph and Jingle Bells. No snow, though. Southern Alabama only gets a half inch every couple of years. The air smelled of diesel exhaust from all the trucks, and when I parked down the street from the Greasy Spoon, it smelled of ham and cheesy grits. Road dust and grime coated the car, but it still was the focus of admiring looks. It always took a few miles to get used to the clutch. I patted the hood lovingly as I put the key fob with the Cobra emblem in my pocket. The door clattered as I pushed it open. Ornamental spoons covered every vertical surface, and more dangled from the ceiling like metallic vines. Grady told me they had teaspoons, tablespoons, mustard spoons, custard spoons, absinthe spoons, coronation spoons, hotel silver, and historical spoons from every state, country, and major event of the last century. A bent spoon from The Matrix sat in a glass case, its handle etched with the movie's prop maker's mark. Beside it rested a salvaged Titanic spoon, tarnished to a soft gray. Those were their two rarest pieces. The most valuable, though, was a gleaming commemorative spoon from Queen Victoria's Silver Jubilee, displayed like a holy relic in its own container. They once had a guy from Guinness come out to count everything. Word is he spent a week here. In the end, he had to tell them that their 29,000 spoons didn't break the record. The current title belongs to a woman in Iowa with more than 38,000. While I waited for Clarice to notice me, I read the plaque on the spoon in the special case. Recovered spoon, RMS Titanic, 1912. Salvaged from the debris field during the 1987 expedition. First-class dining service, electroplated nickel-silver. Donated to the Mercy Historical Spoon Collection, 1994. And at the bottom of the plaque it said, even the smallest things survive the deepest waters. And the case next to it read, Screen-used spoon, The Matrix, 1999. Prop crafted for the Oracle's apartment scene. acquired from a studio liquidation auction, 2007. Local legend insists it was donated by a very polite actor who knows Kung Fu. And the script at the bottom said, "There is no spoon." Ironic. A very real spoon that says it doesn't exist. A meta spoon. It makes my brain hurt. If enough people say you don't exist, does it make it true? Mercy tried to erase me, but I'm still here. A half-real man staring at a spoon that claims it isn't real, falling for someone who is real in a town that never felt real at all. Every booth, table, and stool was filled. I sauntered over to Clarice and said, "I believe I have a reservation." She whirled, her mouth striving to catch up. Before I knew it, she had grabbed me in a bear hug worthy of a weightlifter. If it isn't the cutest bug in a gug of whiskey. Marcus, the old town has been boring since you left. Clarice, a combination of waitress, gossip, and everyone's favorite aunt rolled into one southern fried deep dish package. "Look, everyone, Marcus is back." A half-dozen folk toasted me with their beers or whatever they were drinking. "Order's up, and I'm taking a break," Grady yelled from the back. He left the kitchen carrying 2 plates, one for me, one for him. "Hey, bro, like we don't know what kind of break," Connor Tidwell yelled, nodding at me. "Didn't think we'd ever see you around these parts again." I gave him a polite smile to hide the old pain. Connor was my high school crush and the mayor's son. Crushing on the mayor's son was an unforgivable sin and got me banished from the kingdom. "Likewise," I replied, following Grady to a side table near the kitchens. It had a sign on it that said, "Reserved." "Have a seat," Grady said, setting the plates down. Steak still sizzling from the grill, sautéed mushrooms and onions, cheesy grits, and a couple of hush puppies. Clarice set a couple of brews in front of us. Once the plates were out of his hands, Grady hugged me, a deep hug that we hadn't shared for nearly 6 months. It felt real. Chapter 3. "How long can you stay?" Grady asked, his eyes boring casually into me. I cut my steak, soaking the piece in A1 sauce, and then paused. 10 days? "You plan on seeing your folks?" he asked. "Not really." "You on talking terms?" I took a bite of the steak. They never apologized or admitted they did anything wrong. They're the perfect parents. Grady leaned in and placed a hand on my leg. "I'm glad you came back. You're staying with me. No arguing, just don't mind the boxes." "Was hoping you'd invite me." I lifted his hand and kissed it. "Do you want to see the car?" At Grady's nod, I jerked my thumb toward the window. "I drove it." "No way," Grady said. "It's 60 years old." The old boy held up just fine. My uncle took such good care of it, it's like driving a new car. "Power steering and power brakes?" he asked. "Power steering, yes. It was an option back then," I said. "Power brakes didn't come standard until later in the 60s, so my uncle upgraded those himself." His thumb played on the back of my hand. Neither of us ate. "Why did you come back?" he asked. I let the moment stretch, suddenly afraid of what I'd say. I hoped Grady felt the same about me, but putting it into words meant taking a risk that was too big to explain. So I avoided the conversation and said, "Just wanted to see you." "If you waited a couple of weeks, it would have been too late." Grady resumed cutting his steak, but he cut with a little more force than necessary. "I'm quitting the greasy spoon right after Thanksgiving." Chapter 4. "What are you going to do?" I asked. Grady began to smile. "I didn't want to tell you until it was final." With a slice of steak pausing halfway to my mouth, I smiled back. "Can you tell me now?" I applied and was accepted to the Pastry Academy by Almari Guichon. Grady's voice became low, almost like he was embarrassed. "It's in Vegas, so guess where I'm moving." Grady bit his lip and shyly looked at me, like a puppy desperate for approval. His tender expression wrecked me. My eyes misted. You were coming to Vegas? I had a feeling Grady was asking something else, but like me, was afraid to put it into words. Grady stabbed his fork into his grits. I'm close to being packed. Can you help me find a place? I knew this was the point of no return. I shifted seats to sit next to him. I stared into his dark eyes, ran my fingers through his hair, right above his ear. I leaned in, catching the scent of French fry grease on his shirt. His breath warmed my cheek, quick and shallow. My fingers slid through his hair to the back of his neck, and he shivered. I licked my lips without thinking, and then he was there, close enough that the kiss tasted gently of steak sauce. Chapter 5. The motion of Grady slipping out of bed woke me. The pre-dawn air was chill. The sound of an Alabama freezing drizzle whispered across the roof. It doesn't snow very often, but that doesn't stop it from getting cold. I'm going to start coffee, Grady mumbled, leaning over to kiss me. Don't have much left in the fridge for breakfast. Some eggs? Eat some leftover cheesy grits? You want oatmeal? First morning in Mercy, and I smiled. Grady wore a white A shirt and University of Alabama sweatpants. Most of his things were already boxed. I didn't want to say anything, but his bed hair stuck to the left. Somehow it made him cuter. I'll take the eggs, I said, offering a seductive pout. But the floor is too cold. Maybe you should come back to bed for an hour? Help me stay warm? His smile promised more than coffee. Grady returned to bed, slipping under the covers to lie next to me. Breakfast was very late that day, and I was very warm. Chapter 6. The police department was only a block away. Everything in Mercy is only a block away. I wandered there, killing time until Grady finished his shift. Wrong metaphor for visiting a police station. It was combined with the city hall. Mercy had 20 officers. Dad was chief of police Bolton Carter, appointed by Mayor Tidwell back when grunge rock was still in style. Glass double doors opened into a waiting room that smelled of sweat and bleach. Stark white tile reflecting the fluorescent lights above, and gray chairs with black seats. I nodded at the receptionist in front. She sat behind a sturdy cinder block wall with a bulletproof window between her and the waiting room. 2 other people waited. A door barred the way deeper into the station. The receptionist, a woman wearing the dark blue uniform and hair pulled into a bun, frowned as I pushed the glass doors open and walked up. "Can I help you?" she muttered. "I'm here to see Officer Bolton Carter." "Name?" "Marcus Carter. I'm his son." She looked at me, casually chewing on the back of her pen. "Reason?" It wasn't a question as much as a crack of the whip. "Say hi to my dad." That wasn't good enough for her. "State your business." Her face might as well have been Botoxed for all the emotion she showed. "Social call," I said. She looked me over, as if deciding what crime I was about to commit. "He expecting you?" "Doubt it. We don't talk much." She finally glanced up, her tone neutral. "Should have stayed away, Marcus. Trouble happens when you're around." "Why?" I asked. She shook her head and buzzed the door open. Chapter 7. The room past the door looked like every small-town cop show on TV. A wide, echoing space washed in stark white tile and humming fluorescent lights. The air thick with old coffee and older cigarette smoke. A scatter of 10 or 15 battered desks filled the center, and 2 narrow corridors split off in opposite directions, one toward the holding pens, the other toward the offices and the city hall side. 3 officers worked at the desks, fingers typing on keyboards. My father hovered around a coffee maker and a microwave. His blue uniform wrinkled, his hair gray and thinning. Dad looked older than when I'd last seen him, like a worn pair of jeans ready for rags. Why was I here? I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. I stood next to him. Is it any good? Folger's breakfast blend. Dad glanced over, his eyebrows raised. Surprised you came back. I remained neutral. Came to see Grady. We're leaving Mercy together. Dad refilled his mug. Good for him. I leaned against the counter, staying far out of his personal space. He's going to pastry school in Vegas. The hotels love specialty pastry chefs. Dad shot a weary glance my way. His jaw tightened. Why are you here? I folded my arms and asked the one question I couldn't answer and had stewed over for the last 15 years. You never did like me. Why? Dad remained silent. He handed me a mug. I took it, and Dad poured me a cup of the dark liquid. We have packets of coconut sugar, supposed to be healthier. Creamer is a caramel thing. Doesn't taste too bad. I think I have more toes than the number of times you've called me in 15 years. Do you hate me because I'm gay? I asked. The words leapt out of my mouth. I told myself I was past the resentment, but it came back anyway, slow, cold, and mostly hidden, like an iceberg, the kind that sinks ships and leaves nothing behind but a bent spoon. As if he could read my mind, Dad handed me a plastic spoon. The spoon doesn't exist. I smiled wryly. I accepted the spoon and stirred my coffee. You were always distant, even before I came out, but especially after. Why? Dad sipped his coffee, set it down, and added another packet of coconut sugar. The light caught his face. Dark circles were under his eyes, and his hair was grayer than I remembered. The fine lines about his face had deepened. He was still in his 50s, but he looked closer to 70 than 60. Remember my friend Eddie? His dad didn't know a thing about baseball. Terrible at it, but he still became our Little League coach because he knew Eddie loved the game. You never came to any of my games. 3 years on the team and not once. Dad stirred his coffee, his face a stoic mask. Grady's dad defended him with a shotgun when the mayor tried to force him to leave. What does the mayor have against gay people anyway? Or is it a mercy thing? Welcome to mercy, but not if you're gay. Dad mumbled. It's complicated. Besides, it's not worth talking about anyway. He slowly stirred his coffee, as if that simple motion could explain everything. I sipped the too sweet coffee and nodded. But it's worth kicking your son to Vegas? Understood. I'm gay. Therefore I don't belong. Message received. Thanks for the coffee. Dad seemed about to say something, but turned away. I walked out. Chapter 8. Day before Thanksgiving, Grady and I ate lunch at the Greasy Spoon. Slice of ham, cheesy grits, a stack of flapjacks drowning in boysenberry syrup. I've got 2 bedrooms. You could take one if you want, I said, sipping my coffee. We could try living together. Grady gave me a wicked smile. What's the rent like? Reasonable. You'd pay half. I'm not bringing any furniture, just what will fit into a couple of suitcases. Where will I sleep? I returned his wicked smile with one of my own. I'm sure we'll manage. My dad walked through the door, his blue uniform pressed, his badge gleaming. The rest of the flirt died on my tongue. To be continued, Grady murmured, noting where I looked. It should have surprised me, but even the chief of police has to eat. Our eyes met. I nodded. Dad walked toward me, his gait slower than I remembered, almost hesitant. The dark circles were still under his eyes. He paused at the wall menu for a beat too long, then wiped his palms on his pants before joining us. Coffee's pretty good today, I said. Dad smiled, but it vanished too quickly. I was hoping to find you here. Mind if I pull up a seat? Pushing a chair out with my foot, I said, Help yourself. You going to be in Mercy long? He asked. I leaned forward, cautious. Last night you didn't want to talk to me. Now you do? Dad glanced away, his eyes landing on the Titanic spoon. It's complicated. Isn't it always? Grady said. What did you want to see me about? I set my fork down and fixed my eyes on him. Dad drummed his fingers on the table. Clarice brought him a mug and filled it, setting a bowl of creamers and sweeteners beside it. She shot me a worried look before walking off. Dad took a breath. I told your mother you came by. She ended up talking to Eldon and his wife. My oldest brother hadn't said a word when I was kicked out. None of my siblings had. I sat back and let the breath leak out of me. Clarice returned to top of our cups. I stayed silent. Your mom wanted me to talk to you, Dad said, his tone nearly humble, his words faltering. Before you left again, to go back to Las Vegas. About? Grady asked. It's been a long time since the whole family's been together, Dad began. I almost said, that's because you and the mayor ran me out of town. Even after 15 years, the bitterness sat just under the surface. I held my tongue. Dad looked at Grady, then at me. I didn't mean to hurt you? Yes, you did, Grady muttered. Try again. Dad inhaled, slowly, shoulders rising and falling. Do you have any Thanksgiving plans? Because it would mean a lot if we could be a family again, even for an hour or two. Chapter 9. I leaned back in my chair, not sure if I'd heard him right. You want me to come to Thanksgiving after 15 years of pretending I don't exist? Grady laid a hand on mine before I exploded. The sharpness in his voice almost startled me. Why now, Officer Carter? Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. We made mistakes. Do you believe in karma? Did something happen? Grady asked, when I stayed silent. I didn't trust my voice. I wanted to rage, to scream, to shout that what happened to me was unfair. Instead, I stayed quiet. It's Elizabeth Ann, my father said. Sweet little thing. Who? I asked. Eldon's daughter. I shook my head. He has a daughter? Good for him. Dad's eyes narrowed. His mouth opened, then closed. His hand tightened around his mug. Didn't you know you had a niece? No, you switched the family Facebook to private. My loving parents haven't allowed me access for 15 years. Remember? I said. Something in my tone must have hit him hard, because his eyes closed and he let out a slow breath. She's 14, almost 15, Dad said. Then he paled. Sweet Mother of God, what have I done? It keeps getting worse. Grady glanced at me, then at Dad. You expect Marcus to know some kid born after you exiled him? Someone's an idiot. Dad didn't answer, so Grady kept going. I'm spending Thanksgiving with my family. Mom wanted me to tell you you're invited. Just ignore my sister. Why's that? I asked. Grady smiled. Mom joked I'd get married before she did, and Sis threw a tantrum yelling, It's not fair, I'm prettier. You know, Vegas and their 1-hour weddings? I sipped my coffee, trying not to snicker. You're right, you are pretty. We'll send her an invite. Tell your mom I'll be there. What time? Dinner's at 2. That gives us time to sleep in. No, Dad said, setting his coffee down hard. We need you. I'd never heard desperation in Dad's voice before. He gripped his mug tight, his knuckles white. I rolled my eyes, making sure Dad noticed. Why? None of you like me. Dad composed himself. shoulders stiffening. "Elizabeth Ann is gay," he said, as if it explained everything. I waited, not even seeing a connection, or maybe refusing to. Dad was making a point. I didn't understand. Grady picked at his food. "In spite of the mayor, the world is changing." "She's been having nightmares," Dad explained, his voice growing soft enough that I had to lean forward. "Her mom took her to therapy, and she finally admitted she is terrified." "About what?" I asked. "This town, but mostly me." Dad's voice broke. Grady set his fork down. "Explain." "She's so terrified that if she tells anyone that she prefers women, I'll kick her out of the family and run her out of town." Dad swallowed hard. When I heard that, I realized how bad of a grandfather, of a dad, I'd been. Chloe stepped forward, a plate of flapjacks for my dad. "She's not the only one. Every gay kid in town has that same fear. Mercy's got a bit of a reputation, and it's not good." Thankful for the break, I held my mug up for a refill. "What reputation?" "Bloggers said Mercy was one of the unfriendliest places if you're gay. Here we are, Christmas tree capital of the Bible Belt, and no one wants to come visit. Can't imagine why." She left to refill other coffee cups. Chapter 10. "She's my granddaughter," Dad said, "and I'm your son." The words came out before I could stop them, flat, sharp, and heavier than the mug in my hand. Grady became the voice of reason, or maybe the voice of reality. "So let me get this straight," he said, leaning back like he was settling in for a show. "You want your estranged son, the one you kicked out, the one you pretended didn't exist, to show up at Thanksgiving so you can pretend everything's fine? Also, your granddaughter, who happens to be gay, won't be scared anymore?" Dad flinched, not dramatically, just a tiny tightening around his eyes, like the truth stung more than he expected. Grady wasn't done. "You don't get to skip 15 years of pain, come in here with a lame apology, and call it forgiveness." Dad's jaw worked, but no sound came out. I stared at him, waiting for something, an apology, an explanation, a reason I should even be sitting here. Nothing came. The familiar hollowness settled into my chest. An ache had lived inside me for 15 years, an ache I thought was gone, but it resurfaced. Once Grady and I left Mercy, I could breathe again. Dad swallowed, his throat bobbing like the words were stuck there. "I don't know how to fix this," he whispered. Grady stood up, his meal half finished. "Not only do the children have to pay for the sins of the fathers, but they get to clean them up too. This town. I swear, Marcus, I can't leave soon enough. Let's go for a walk." Chapter 11. Our walk turned into a drive. We took my car, the white with blue racing stripes bold in the sun. The Shelby Mustang roared as we drove along roads far off the beaten path. We passed tree farms still 3 or 4 years from harvest. The gentle solitude eased my soul. Grady sat beside me, quiet, not offering any advice or consolation. Was there any? I finally pulled in at the Sumter Pond, about 3 miles outside Mercy. These parts of the farms weren't in active use, so no lumberjacks felling trees, no tractors loading diesel haulers, no industrial noise. What we did have were clouds, dark gray with a light wind. The air smelled of pine and rain. "Storm's coming," Grady said as we climbed out of the Mustang. "It already hit," I replied. Grady smirked. "What do you want to do? You know I'll back you." I took his hand and we walked to the edge of the water. It was getting colder. "I don't know." Grady stood beside me as we stared at the water, pulling my arm close to him. "I'm glad you came back, even if it got weird." "I didn't mean to bring the drama," I said. Grady stepped in front of me, wrapping his arms about me. "I'm selling hugs." "What's the price, boyfriend?" I asked. Before he could answer, the rain broke free of the clouds and pummeled us. Barely above freezing, The drops created giant rings across the pond with loud plops that became a steady rhythm. We ran to the car, diving inside. The rain became a persistent drum on the roof. We laughed. Water drizzling down his face, Grady quickly kissed me. Feel better? I don't know. What do I do? I don't even know this kid. Grady placed his hand on mine. Like your dad said, karma has come knocking. You don't have to do anything. He's the one who has to face the consequences. So you think I should avoid my family? Grady shrugged. I don't know what I'm saying. When I don't know what to do, I wait until I get more information. We drove back to the Spoon, holding hands. Chapter 12. Thanksgiving morning. I sat at the bar nursing my Michelob and eating a fresh batch of fries when the door opened, letting in an icy draft. The air was wet, smelling of damp clothes and the ozone of an electric heater. Grady would be off work soon. We were supposed to be at his folks' house about noon. Thanksgiving dinner was at 2. Then watched the afternoon football game. The TV played an Office rerun I had seen before, while the jukebox pushed out some Bruno Mars. Clarice had gone home. A woman took the stool to my right. Navy raincoat, sturdy slacks, blue blouse. Hair damp from the rain. I didn't recognize her. However, she did me. Marcus, can we talk? I faced her. Should I know you? The line made her wince. I'm Eldon's wife, Melissa. We sort of met at the lawyer's office for your granduncle's will. Before that, you were at our wedding. So you're my sister-in-law. I'm sorry, I don't remember you. It's been too long. She pursed her lips as if not sure how to respond. She flagged down the waitress who brought her a Michelob as well. Since I didn't know what to say, I turned back to the fries. We've unblocked you, she said. Excuse me? I asked. It happened so long ago. She spoke, not looking up from her beer, more to fill the silence than to say anything memorable. Nobody remembered doing it. Probably Bolton. He can get really angry sometimes. But you already know that. Why are you here? Bolton mentioned you were in town, your family, she said. I glanced at her then. Funny way to show it. She sighed, not a dramatic sigh, more like the this conversation wasn't going the way she thought kind of sigh. I get that you're bitter, she said, and angry, and you have every right. What happened was unfair, and nobody handled it well. I finished my beer in one gulp, wiped my lips, and slid off the stool. This is the part where you say, but. Her eyebrows lowered, eyes squinted. What do you mean? It was my turn to sigh. But, Marcus, it's time to be the bigger person and put it all behind you. No, Melissa said. I wasn't going to say that. How about something like, if you come to Thanksgiving, Elizabeth Ann won't be afraid anymore. My shoulders tensed and I forced my hands to relax. I don't know what you expect me to be able to do, but my family stopped being my family 15 years ago. They kicked me out. Remember, I don't even know them, and they've shown me that they don't want to know me. Then why did you go see Bolton? She asked. I gave her a look that could have frozen her beer. I stupidly thought Dad might be happy to see me. Guess what? He wasn't. As far as I'm concerned, Mercy has one good thing left, and he's leaving with me. Please, for my daughter's sake, Melissa said. Quick question, I asked, pulling my wallet out of my pocket. You and Eldon had 15 years to contact me. You didn't. You need proof? I didn't recognize you, and never knew you had a daughter. If I'm family... You didn't protect me. My brother didn't protect me. Why should I believe you'll protect Elizabeth Ann? She's my little girl. Word of advice, I said, laying some money on the counter. The sooner your precious Elizabeth Ann leaves Mercy, the happier she'll be. This dump destroys lives. I walked out. Turns out Mayor Tidwell was sitting 2 tables away. Must have heard everything. Chapter 13. Grady and I arrived at noon, bearing a dozen bottles of Pinot Noir for the adults and Sprite for the kids. 20 people waited for us. His parents, grandparents, an aunt, a cousin, his siblings, and a family friend. For half a second, the nerves hit. I didn't know any of them, yet they all knew me. I was Grady's boyfriend with the cool car. No one mentioned my father or the fact I'd been kicked out of town for being gay. If they cared, they didn't show it. They just refilled my glass and asked which team I thought would win. The house was warm, the scent of turkey thick in the air, and the morning football game rumbling in the background. We traded hugs like baseball cards, trivia like buried treasure, and laughs like they were on discount. A fire crackled in the hearth, and a wreath of autumn leaves decorated the table. Right before 2, Grady's grandfather lit the white tapered candles. The food gathered on the extended oak table like a small harvest, and we held hands while Grady's dad said a standing grace, before we drifted into random seats at a feast big enough to feed a church choir. I had missed this. No, I'd been denied this. For years, something had been missing in my life, and Grady's family filled the hole. With conversation, multiple courses, and finally dessert. Pumpkin, apple lattice, cheesecake, and peach cobbler, with vanilla ice cream served with a small glass of ice wine. The dinner stretched until 4. The doorbell rang. Grady's mom stood to answer it. I leaned over and kissed Grady, and one of the cousins immediately asked if I'd take them for a ride in the Shelby Mustang. It was normal, healing, the kind of moment I knew I'd carry the rest of my life. I let out a breath and relaxed into comfort. And then it wasn't. The hairs on my neck stood up. My body stiffened before I even knew why. "What's wrong?" Grady whispered near my ear. That was when I saw her, my mom, standing in the hallway, speaking quietly with Grady's mom. I walked over. Grady noticed and followed. "What are you doing here, Mom?" She hesitantly looked at the boisterous and cheerful family behind me, at their laughter, at the chaos, and her mouth drooped. So did her shoulders. "I came to invite you and your boyfriend." She paused before she said boyfriend, taking a second to breathe. "Why?" I asked gently. "I want us to be a family," she said. I folded my arms and glanced at the shotgun over the fireplace. Was that the same shotgun Grady's dad had used to defend his son nearly 2 decades ago? I faced Mom. "My family never stood up for me. You never stood up for me. Why didn't you?" Mom looked like she was about to cry. Grady's mom placed an arm about my shoulders. "We'll wait. Just go." Chapter 14. Grady and I arrived at my old house around 5. Cliché as it sounded, it felt small. "You sure you want to do this?" Grady asked, leaning over to wipe something from my chin. I nodded, slid up alongside Dad's patrol cruiser, put the Shelby Mustang in park, and kissed Grady for luck. 2 festive pots flanked the porch, filled with late autumn flowers and branches of yellow and orange leaves. Tucked into each was a small rainbow flag. A warmth I didn't trust flickered through me. Grady raised an eyebrow as we laced our fingers together. Mom climbed out of her SUV, swinging her white leather handbag over her shoulder. The front door burst open. Eldon stood there, a smile flickering to life. "Welcome home." I gripped Grady's hand tighter. I must have winced because Eldon's smile dimmed. I didn't know what I mumbled back as Grady and I stepped stiffly into the house I never expected to return to. My aunt rushed forward to hug me. "I know it's not traditional, but I made that potato salad you used to rave about." Then my uncle. "I've been reading up on the stats for that car. A 289 cubic inch hypo V8. You have to let me take a look at that engine." I cleared my throat and forced courage into my lungs. I'd like you to meet Grady, my boyfriend. We're heading to Las Vegas in a couple of days. Second cliché of the day. You could have heard a pin drop on a shag carpet. Dad sat in his easy chair, breathing heavy, his face pale, his eyes wide. Mom wrung her hands, her handbag still on her shoulder, her voice tremored when she spoke. Welcome to our home, Grady. We've already eaten, but we waited on dessert. Won't you join us? Pumpkin cheesecake and fudge ripple ice cream? My siblings and their spouses glanced at their shoes, never meeting my eyes. Grady quietly whispered, How do you want to handle this? The little devil on my shoulder wanted to scream. How dare they pretend nothing had happened? How dare they even display the pride flag? How dare Mom even call this home? Without thinking, my fist clenched. Behind the scent of the turkey, of the pumpkin, of the celebration, was the scent of pine. The same kind Dad used as an air freshener in his patrol car. He'd always used the little pine tree cutouts that hung from the rear view mirror, replacing them every 2 weeks or so. It reminded me of the last time I'd been in that car. The pain filled me. The bitterness threatened to spill out. The anger, a self-loathing humiliation that rotted somewhere in my guts to this day. Once again, I was 18. Dad had driven me to Montgomery, 140 miles away, in his patrol car. The trip took 2.5 hours. He remained silent the whole way. Once we got to the bus station, Dad had bought the ticket on the first bus available, Las Vegas. My dad had stood there, in his uniform, making sure I boarded the bus. And in his professional voice that had terrified an 18-year-old, he coldly said, You will never be welcome in Mercy again. You are not part of the family. We don't want you here. If you ever come back, I will arrest you on trespassing and vagrancy and ship you to county. I'm 33 now, almost 34. I'd lied to myself. 15 years hadn't erased anything. That terrified kid still huddled inside me. I remembered sleeping in random parks for that first month. Yet somehow I survived, grew up, put myself through college, found love, though that didn't last. Maybe with Grady it would. Everyone's smiles slowly collapsed. Must be something about my eyes. I inwardly smirked. I never did have a good poker face. I kept waiting for someone to say, It's been 15 years and you're still holding a grudge. No one said anything. No one even moved. I expected to hear the line, You have to forgive us. We're family. They stood there, unsure what to say, what to do. One wrong move and I'd bolt. Do you want to leave? Greasy Spoon is open tonight. Truckers still have to eat. Grady whispered, though loud enough for the others to hear. I remembered the people who'd helped me. Kind strangers I only saw once, who gave and never expected anything back. Clarissa's on duty. She'd be glad for the company, Grady said. They froze, Mom and Dad, my siblings and their spouses, everyone except my aunt. Bolton, get off your lazy butt and say something. You've been whining about this damn minute for years. Well, it's here. Time to be the bigger person or say goodbye forever. Dad didn't move. Mom disappeared into the kitchen to emerge without the purse and carrying the pumpkin cheesecake. Her smile returned, but so did the fear in her eyes. It looks delicious, Melissa said, the nerves wobbling her voice. This hasn't been home for 15 years, I muttered. I don't even recognize half of you. Grady, this was a waste. Let's visit Clarice and then we can watch the game at your place. What about my daughter? Eldon said. I smiled, sadly, at him. Tell Elizabeth Ann that family isn't worth the pain. The pumpkin cheesecake hit the table with a heavy thud. You're leaving? You can't leave. We have so much to tell you, Mom said, the words blurting out as fast as she could speak. Why should I stay? The words came out loud, angry. The anger I had thought had gone suddenly lashed out in one furious sentence. So you don't have to feel guilty anymore? So you can check off the box that says you tried? So you can show the world what a loving family you are? How you accept everyone? Marcus, Mom began, I just want my family together, just once. Please, just sit. Dad rose from his chair. You take your anger out on me, boy, not anyone else. I'm the one at fault. It was my decision. Just doing what the mayor wanted, trying to keep the peace, keep my job. It's the worst decision I ever made, and once I cooled down, I realized what I'd done. Since you were the dad, everyone followed your orders, Grady said. I figured what's done was done. Mayor was happy, town was happy. I convinced myself that Marcus was better off. Next thing you know, it was 15 years. You're right, I said, walking toward the door. I was better off. Isn't there any chance? Mom asked. I know our family will never be the same like before, but I don't want to lose you. A girl entered the room, large black Alabama State hoodie on. So you're Marcus, the prodigal gay uncle? The way these guys talked, I thought you'd be shorter. You're Elizabeth Ann? I asked. Yep. You're the one with the nightmares? She turned on Melissa. God, Mom, did you tell everyone? Melissa leaned close to her husband, her hands grasping his arm. I thought Marcus could help. We thought that if we brought him back to the family, your nightmares would go away, Eldon said, looking down. Elizabeth Ann rolled her eyes. God help me from parents. Can we get to the pie yet? Enough, Mom screamed. We are sitting down as a family and having a slice of pie together. Bolton, you will apologize for your 15 years of stupidity right now, and if I don't feel it down to my toes, you will do it again. As for the rest of you loving children, start saying you're sorry to Marcus, and you better mean it. Marcus, you and your boyfriend take the seats on the side of the table. Elizabeth Ann, sit next to your uncle, in your chairs, now. As one, we all said, Yes, ma'am. Dad had to apologize 12 times before Mom was satisfied. Chapter 15. The Mustang's engine ticked softly as it cooled, the desert night settling around us like a sigh. 2 days on the road, 2 days of silence, gas stations, cheap motels, and long stretches of highway, where the past felt too close behind me. Grady trailed me in his own car, now loaded with all his things. Our lives were about to restart. We pulled into a roadside motel just past the New Mexico border, the sky washed in the last streaks of sunset. Time for food and a cheap room. Grady leaned against the passenger door, arms folded, watching me with that steady patience he never had to announce. You okay? I nodded, though the truth was tangled. Yeah, I think so. I patted the Shelby's hood. The museum would complain. It wasn't pristine anymore, but it was mine. We'd left Mercy before sunrise 2 days ago. The air still thick with everything unsaid. I'd needed the miles, needed the monotony of asphalt and the hum of the engine to scrub that last of that house from my skin. The apologies, the pie, the 15 years of silence, trying to masquerade as love. Somewhere between Mercy and the Arizona border, the past finally stopped chasing me. Not forgiveness, not even acceptance, just release. I could breathe again. My phone buzzed. A text from Elizabeth Ann. A picture of the Welcome to Mercy sign. Population 7,800. The mayor stood beside it, directing workers as they added a new line beneath it. Y'all are welcome here. A rainbow heart painted beside the words. I stared at it for a long moment, something warm and unfamiliar stirring in my chest. Then I took Grady's hand, and together we went to find a room. The end. Thank you, everybody, for joining me in Bentley for our little adventure to Alabama. We appreciate it. I'll see you next week. I love you all. Peace, my friends.